Hello, all, and welcome to this Friday afternoon's Absinthe review, which I'm going to dub the mildly cursed review. So, first thing I want you to notice is I have this bottle of absinthe right here, and it's almost half gone. Why is it almost half gone? Well, you know, I took a few, I took about two, three, I usually do about two or three, pre-tastes of a liqueur, especially expensive ones, before I actually do the review. But this one, I was really having some trouble, and I found out that temperature really matters a lot with this one. If it gets too warm, then it's not as good as when it's like mainland room temperature. And unfortunately, it is not mainland room temperature right now. It is currently 89 degrees, and with the humidity, it is somewhere in, the felt temperature is somewhere in about the mid to high 90s. I don't live in a place with AC, so yeah, that necessitated me freezing the water to make sure that it was cold enough. And I tried frosting the glass, but then I realized, oh, when you frost an absinthe glass, that means that you can't see the luge. Brilliant idea, Paul. So, scratch that one. And then when I get to the finally recording the review, then I start having difficulties with outside noises and, overgoing, you know, it started interrupting my speech and my thought flow. So the review ended up sounding like crap, and me not really giving it 100%. And I know that sounds strange coming from somebody whose hair looks like it's a melting candle right now due to the humidity. But yeah, next time I'm going to review. Next time I review absinthe, it's going to be during winter. Let's put it this way. So, what is the absinthe that we are reviewing today? This is St. George absinthe. And let's read the label here, shall we? Fine brandy with the choicest herbs. Our fine absinthe Verte is the result of years of patient experimentation and herbal distillation. Its complexity comes from the use of fine brandy, star anise, mint, wormwood, lemon balm, hyssop, basil, fennel, tarragon, and stinging nettles. Now, this was one of the first American-made absinthes to come out after the repeal of the absinthe ban in about 2007, 2008, thereabouts. And so it's been around for a long time. This one is also fairly controversial in that a lot of these herbs used in this are not traditional herbs used in absinthe. And the big one here is that they use star anise instead of regular anise. And that does have an effect on the flavor, as well as various other things that aren't really in most other absinthes, like lemon balm, basil, tarragon, and most of all, stinging nettles. And mint, too. Mint's usually not in absinthes. It does have some things going for it. It has a brandy base, which is a traditional base of absinthes. Most modern absinthes use a neutral spirits base. And I guess without much further ado, let's just get straight to this. So this is 120 proof, or 60% ABV. And I'm hoping to God that this time I don't have to go and, after about 5 or 6 pre-tastes, when I'm trying to figure out why it tasted so different each time and sometimes not as great, and then one very long review that I ended up having to dump, I'm hoping this one goes well enough that I don't have to do this again, and that I can retire this bottle and move on to other things. So, one of the other things I noticed is that with this particular absinthe, you really have to be very, very careful with your water to absinthe ratio. This is the one, I haven't had much experience with absinthe, but this one is one of the most unforgiving I've ever had in regards to if you add too much, it really starts watering down both the mouthfeel and flavor. So I would say rather than the traditional 1 part one part absinthe to 2 parts water. You go slightly below that 2 parts water. I'm going to be using the Glencairn just because it's the only drinking glass I have that's clear-sided. And part of the problem I had, of course, is the fact that a Glencairn glass is not exactly the ideal glass for, doing a luge in. So this is Alameda, California, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Kind of see? It doesn't show up so it shows up as very golden yellow on this very cheap and old web camera, but it does have very strong tints of green to it. Now this is notable because this is what absinthe is supposed to look like without dyes. If you get some sort of absinthe that is almost like neon bright green straight out of the glass, and straight out of the bottle, it's probably got dyes added to it, and that's not a good thing. Nose, while straight here. You smell that star anise. You smell lemon balm. But mostly you smell alcohol. Unsurprisingly, because right now it's at 60% alcohol. Okay, now here comes the part of the review where I spill water all over myself because I don't have a absinthe water dispenser. It's sort of like this thing where it's very long spigot, and it just drips water into the absinthe glass. I don't have that. So what am I going to be doing here? I am going to be holding this up so you can go and see the solution. By the way, very thick legs here. And let me do some quick calculations. Yeah, to about here. Okay. Okay, so water on my desk, water on my pants. You can slowly watch it loose here. As the oils and the liquor sort of, I forget the scientific term for it. You can kind of see the cloudiness forming on the bottom here. Cool, yeah? It looks even cooler in real life. See that luge form. Okay, the glass is starting to make weird noises. Hopefully the ice hasn't melted. So I put a thin skein of ice on top of this to go and control the flow. So I stuck this in the freezer. One, to make it cold as hell, and to kind of control the flow of water a little bit better. You want a really nice flow of water so you can appreciate that beautiful luge. And you can't see it on this camera right here, but what you want is pure milkiness all the way up to the very top. Right now there's still a little bit of translucency. Yeah, getting there. Almost there. Almost there. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you can see a beautiful, thick, milky luge. Very thick, very opaque. Looks almost a little bit like coconut milk, doesn't it? Let's do the nosing. Mm. Now with the water added, much more of the more delicate nuances come out. Very floral. So floral with hints of spiciness and herbaceousness, unsurprisingly. It's a botanical liqueur. Yes, it will have those smells. So the top note here, or I guess the note that surrounds all the other notes, is of course the star anise, and it is not as strong as a regular anise is in other absinthes. So if you don't like the taste of anise, this is probably the absinthe to go and try. The lemon balm that was there when it was straight isn't quite there anymore. Sort of blended in with the rest of the smells. Got the fennel. Some of that smell I associate with wormwood. That sort of spicy, woody smell, but very light right now. Wormwood is more on the palate. And there's that lemon balm kind of showing up again, poking its head out. Ah, the basil. Yep, there it is. And I don't know how the stinging nettles would show up. The mint kind of folds into the star anise because as flavors go, they're kind of related. You might not think it, but give it a shot. Try like some star anise and mint, and you'll find that while mint has that numbing flavor, it also has I'm trying to find the words to describe it, but it folds into absinthe. It's like folds into anise, very star anise, very smoothly. Honestly, parts of this are very evocative of a good pho soup. You know that Vietnamese soup because of that basil. In fact, that you also put lemon inside of a pho. All in all, very perfumed, very pleasant smelling. Well, let's get on to the palate now before it warms up too much in this almost god awful weather. 89 degrees, and I might add it's cloudy out actually. 89 degrees and cloudy. Yeah. No rain though. It doesn't seem to be raining all that much down here by the ocean. Maybe up in the mountains it is. Okay, onto the palate now, shall we? Hmm, perfect. So in the long finish, you have a sweetness, a herbal sweetness, fairly indistinct herbal sweetness that lasts on the tongue, with a top note of star anise and mint. There's also some prickly spiciness on the tongue too. The mints. that prickly spiciness, which I assume is the stinging nettles, is at its peak. There's a bitterness there that slowly disappears in the long finish. Bitterness from the wormwood. Up front, that lemon balm is at its strongest, but it continues throughout. And one thing I noticed that as it warms up, that lemon balm really, really expands to the point that if it's too warm, lemon balm kind of overwhelms more delicate nuances of some of the other tastes there. Same as if you water it down a little bit too much. Wormwood bitterness is strongest in the front to mids, but it slowly declines to the finish, but then it rises again in the long finish and then declines again. Really interesting pattern there. Mouthfeel, very oily, very silken. In fact, one of the interesting things I found is that they add more water, the oiliness actually increases. And that kind of obstructs some of the other more delicate things. I don't know why, but exceedingly thick. This is, of all the absinthes I've had, this probably has the thickest mouthfeel. Anise and mint mostly reside as a top note. Like I said, if you are someone who does not like the taste of anise, black licorice, though, like I always say, black licorice and anise taste very different to me. Anise is very flowery, very light, bright. Black licorice to me, earthy, dark. I can see the kinship there, but they're fundamentally different to me in what they evoke. And I kind of wonder, do I have like taste synesthesia or something like that? Because I always go and describe taste as bright or dark or light or round or sharp. Right now, it's a bit on the sharp side. But the thing is, if you add too much water, it comes too round. Roundness being the description for oiliness, I guess. If you sit there and just kind of contemplate the taste, there's other herbal notes that appear in the top note. The fennel and the hyssop make their show in that top note as well. Of all the absinthes I've also had, this is also the one that has the most numbing effect on the palate that I've ever had. All of them kind of have somewhat of a numbing effect, because I think wormwood has that kind of effect on the palate. Tastes bitter, kind of numbs it. But I think the addition of the stinging nettles amps up that numbing effect on the tongue. Now, it doesn't really affect your ability to taste it all that much because taste is more in the nose than on the palate. Especially something as floral and herbaceous as this, you know, expresses itself more through your nose than on your tongue, which just has a sort of sweet and bitter aspect on your tongue itself, along with that numbing effect. Definitely get a lot of that wormwood in there, that's for sure. I think why they chose star anise with this particular drink, this particular absinthe, was because they're one of the first ones up, to come out. And the real difficulty for a lot of people is the taste of anise, to the point where Bohemian absinthes, and I don't truly consider them absinthes because they lack basically most of the herbal aspects other than the wormwood. It's basically just a wormwood tincture to a certain extent, those Bohemian ones, and a heck of a lot of alcohol and green dye. All true absinthes have to have that anise aspect, but anise aspect is what is most difficult for most people to get past. So, in order to go and minimize it, they use star anise, which is not as strong as regular anise. Absinthe. Absinthe is just because of its very nature, the complexity of it, the entire ritual. It there isn't really like some sort of hallucinogenic effect or anything, but it just brings about this sort of contemplativeness that you don't really get with a lot of other alcoholic beverages just because of how much you got to go through to get it done right. You know what I mean? And how much various notes are there in the nose and in the tasting for you to kind of savor and enjoy. That's why my absinthe tastings tend to go the longest. The failed take I did before was 25 minutes. This one's probably going to be even longer than that. Absinthe is something to be savored. It puts one in a contemplative state of mind that some may confuse with a chemically induced state of mind. Yes, there is some sort of chemical um, chemical effect on here. There's alcohol. There's a lot of alcohol in this, but other than that, you know, it is a beverage for. Mm, it is a beverage for tasting. Got to go to the most basic things here. To be tasted and savored. Got it right this time. Very happy I got it right. It's also possible to add too little water, but the problem is, thing is, when you add too little water, you just add more water. But if you add too much water, well, you can't really pour absinthe into the water. Just don't do that, by the way. I'm pretty sure there's no like chemical reason why you can't go and balance it like that, but that's breaking a major rule of absinthe. You never add the absinthe to water. You always add the water to absinthe. Uh, well, you can see here, the art here is a monkey drumming on his skull, which is what your head will feel like if you drink too much of this stuff, because absinthe does give hangovers from hell. Um, yeah, you know, in summation, since it is past 26 minutes right now, and it's really affecting me because I didn't drink last night and haven't had a drink all week, so, going straight to the head. In summation, this absinthe is not a traditional absinthe, of the two traditional types. It is a green absinthe, yes, but it includes a much different herbal bill. The botanicals added are different from the traditional absinthe, and that includes one very fundamental change, and that is changing the anise to star anise. That said, there is still the complexity that you expect from traditional absinthe. There is still the taste of anise, but not as strong as in other absinthes, and is still deeply enjoyable and fits all the exterior aesthetic needs of absinthe to luge beautifully, to have a natural green color, to have a beautiful nose, and beautiful taste for that matter, beautiful complex taste. So while it may not satisfy the most conservative of absinthe drinkers, someone looking for something tasteful, interesting to go and try, well, this is definitely going to fit that bill. That said, you better be a rich man, because this cost about $60 for this bottle here. Can't believe it took me $30 worth of drinking before I could go and get this review done right. And yeah, this is probably my longest review I've ever done. It's 28 minutes right now. So I am going to go and finish this up, and I have an IPA to go and pre-test, and I'm kind of wondering how well I'm going to be able to pre-taste it. I think I need to go and eat something before I pre-taste it, as well as drink some water. So, folks, that is your absinthe review for this afternoon. This very, very hot and humid afternoon. Cheers.